Tell us some stories. Tell us some stories. All right, I'm going to tell you a couple of Copperhead stories back in the day, and then we'll fast forward and we'll talk about this critter that you can see in this picture. Back in the 80s, I was taking a herpetology class at Ole Miss in Oxford, and we would go out to the meadows out in Abbeville and hunt for snakes and amphibians. And as a rule, the water moccasins were very aggressive. And I could tell you some stories about that, but that's not what I really want to talk about. I noticed that in the cage that we had a copperhead in at Ole Miss in the lab, that when they would eat a mouse, they would just kind of ease over to it and just bite it and inject it and then just kind of move away and let the mouse die. And then they would come by later and then eat the mouse. They would not, be like a constrictor, violently, aggressive on the mouse. It was rather humane. So there's one example of a docile copperhead. The other one that is somewhat of an example, I was not there when it happened, but we went to Tishomingo Park in northeast Mississippi, and a friend of mine pulled a copperhead out of an old tree stump with some snake tongues, and apparently did so rather uneventfully. So my experience with copperheads is, as a rule, they're not as mean and as aggressive as a water moccasin. Again, I do want to tell you, stay away from snakes. Keep your distance. This is like the COVID rules, 6 feet or more. Maybe more than that. I don't really want to give one a chance to get the upper hand on me. Anyhow, let's talk about this snake in this picture for just a minute. I've got a friend, a buddy, since the 70s. I knew him from Jackson State University in Jackson back in the 70s. It's hard to believe. He was a cool cat with bell bottoms and the coolest afro ever, and a sweet girlfriend who's still sweet. Anyhow, that was a story I didn't really intend to tell you, but let's talk about this for a minute. He went out to check his mail by Byhalia, Mississippi, in the boonies, and somehow ran over this snake. And again, I do want to draw your attention to the hourglass pattern on the back. Giveaway for a copperhead, and also the triangular head is sign of a venomous snake. Also, a vertical slit in the pupil is a sign of a poisonous snake in North America. Once again, I don't want to get close enough to tell that much information. There's also a way to look under the scales behind the vent. There is a way to tell if the snake is poisonous or non-poisonous by looking at the scale pattern. If it's a single scale, it's poisonous. If it's a broken row of scales, then it's non-poisonous. I'm leaving a link for you to see that after the video. Copperheads in Mississippi. Brother Barnes, be careful and be safe.